Hey everyone, welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers on the MHP Show. We all know we talk about anything and everything that has to do with mobile home parks, crazy freaking mobile home park stories and the operations and all the interesting things that happen in this asset class. And I've got another guest with us today, but before that, I want you guys to go to my website and go to derekvickers.com/evergreen webinar. You can literally log into that and get an hour and a half of content of the basics of mobile home park investing all the way up to how to close your first deal and how to get the money for your first deal. If you listen to that, that's literally all you would need. If you just took the advice on the free webinar and you could go get your first deal. Like, this is not a complicated process, guys. It's not that complicated. I know people like to make it complicated, but it's really not. So if you go check that out, derekvickers.com/evergreen webinar, you can get access to that now. So today I have Mr. Garrett Terrell. Did I say that right? Terrell. Got it, man. Well, hey, dude, it's great to have you on the show. You've got 60 properties now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
60 properties now. We had touched base on Instagram, and you were like, "Oh my God, I love mobile home parks. I bought my first one. It was a unicorn deal." And I was like, "Dude, I want to hear about this deal." So welcome, man.
Yes, thank you, dude. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to talk about this deal and see if I can provide any value to your audience.
Yeah, and so when I get on the show here, I like to ask people, because you're an entrepreneur, like, what was your first entrepreneurial journey that you went on before real estate, unless real estate was first?
Well, to be honest with you, real estate was first. I mean, I got my license when I got out of college. I played Division I baseball in college, and I knew I wanted to get into real estate. And so I kind of just got my license just to kind of understand the business and how it all worked, and offers and inspections and closings and appraisals and loans. I just wanted to get like kind of a baseline of how it all worked. But I quickly found out that investing is where I want to spend my time. And it's just been history ever since. So yeah, pretty much real estate was the start.
So you were an agent at first?
Yes, I was.
Right. And I know some agents. I think most real estate agents like want to do what we do at some point, but then some of them don't. And like, so what was the thing that made you like, all right, this agent thing is not going to work. I got to get into investing. What was that thing?
Dude, it's just control. It's totally control. You know, when you're an agent, I mean, it's basically a job, you know, and you're kind of at the mercy of other people. And so although you can make good money doing it, and I did, and was very successful at it, I really wanted to be in control of the whole entire process, whether I bought a property to fix and flip, which was my main bread and butter for the last 5 years, or whether I was buying a rental property. I had full control of that. So that's really why I didn't want to be an agent forever, but I just wanted to learn the business.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it's really like, you know, so when I was selling insurance, it's the same thing. I was literally trading time for money at that point. I was literally, you know, eating off of every commission that I got. And I would have to go out and hunt down the next deal. And essentially, like, you are on your own, but still, it's like you live and die by that commission. And so you're like, you know, you're a slave to it almost. So I get 100%. It, man.
100%.
Yeah. So it's good, man. But and so you got in, you started fixing and flipping houses, and then what on earth made you buy a mobile home park? Like, why?
So I never heard of mobile home parks before, like the actual asset class and investing into it. I've obviously heard of them before, but one of my really good friends, Ethan in Washington, Ethan Leach, shout out to him. He is a few years younger than me and is absolutely a genius when it comes to mobile home park investing. And, you know, he was doing my PPC, and we kind of, you know, talked about his strategies versus me doing fix and flips and rentals. And he just kind of started telling me about the mobile home park process and operating them and tenant owned, park owned home. And we just kind of organically just kept the conversation going. And really over the last, 8-9 months, I had just been specifically underwriting mobile home parks and, probably underwrote 200 plus deals, maybe 250 deals. I mean, I was really, really trying to understand this asset class. And then this unicorn deal popped up in late summer, and it just, everything made sense. And I took advantage of it and took it down. And I will tell you right now, this deal was the best financial decision I have ever made in my life. It was, I'm not going to say easiest, but it was the path. It was the path of least resistance compared to buying a single family fix and flip or buying a single family rental. It was so much fun, and I'm just gung ho about this asset class. I am utterly convinced that this is the asset class that I want to stay in for a very long time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I want to go back to something that you said, because something you said is extremely, extremely important. So you underwrote 200 to 250 deals. And anybody that's in my Inner Circle program, or anybody that's even just watches the free webinar, like, I tell people, you have to start underwriting deals, even the shitty ones on LoopNet. You have to start underwriting deals. And so I'm curious, because it's so interesting that you did that and then you found this unicorn deal. So I'd love to know, like, what all you learned from doing that underwriting religiously, and how that actually helped you find this unicorn deal.
So, great question. My background is fix and flip, right? That was my bread and butter. I am very comfortable in that asset class and that risk. So I kind of just took the same basic, underwriting guidelines and applied that towards mobile home parks. And I know it's completely different, and there's a lot to kind of unpack there. But for me, an easy kind of rule of thumb, and I use this all the time in fix and flip: if it's not a hell no, it's a hell yes. And so I kind of looked at that. I kind of looked at mobile home parks the exact same way. If it was kind of a questionable deal, I could probably pull a few strings and try to make it work this way. It just, nothing really excited me until I found this one deal where I underwrote it very conservatively and was like, man, I can't lose on this. Like, I'm buying this, And so if it's not a hell no, it's a hell yes, or if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, Right. So I kind of I really wanted to buy the right deal. I did not want to buy an okay deal. I really wanted to buy the right one in the right location, just with the whole entire story. I never really fell in love with any of the other properties and their stories, because part of this, and this as well, part of the underwriting process is the story of the property, and it's the story with the seller. And so I just never really connected the dots with any of the other ones. They were all okay, but I found this one and it was the right one. And I took advantage of it. I knew it in my gut. The second I looked at it, I knew in my gut that I was going to buy it. And that's how it ended up happening.
Yeah, man. And dude, that's awesome, because and I tell people all the time, like, when I go into a deal, I know the purchase price. I've already underwritten it, on my phone, like, briefly back of the napkin. I go through the deal and I get this little vibration thing. Like, oh yeah, I want that one. I'm buying this one. And that's it. We'll go and buy the deal. But you don't get that. I think you develop that feeling after you underwrite 200 or 250 bad deals. Yeah. Then when the good deal comes along, you're like, oh my God. Because people tell me all the time, why am I going to go underwrite these shitty deals on Corexy and LoopNet and Mobile Home Park Store? I'm like, because exactly what you just said, because now you're learning, like, what a bad deal looks like and what a decent deal looks like and what a good deal looks like. I mean, I imagine there were a lot of things that you learned in there. Your first one probably took, how long did it take to underwrite your first deal? You're probably like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really underwrote it for, I as soon as I saw it, I knew, because it got 5 offers within a first couple days, and it was actually an MLS deal. That's the crazy thing about this, is it was an MLS deal that my broker sent me. And I knew I had to act quick on it, and I underwrote it every which way possible. Like best case scenario, worst case scenario, underwrote it with terrible debt, with really good debt. And just any way that I diced it up, it was going to be a win. And so I had to act on it quick. It was not weeks and weeks and weeks. It was hours. Yeah. Time was of the essence.
For sure. And I mean, you feel good about when you find deals like that, you feel good about your speed to action too. There's no really hesitation, because if there's hesitation, then there may be something there that you're not very certain about. But when you get that deal that it's like, boom, I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So tell us about this deal. Like, I want to hear about the unicorn that I missed out on.
Okay. So, well, what do you want to know?
How many pads? What was the utility setup? Was it park owned or tenant owned, and where was it?
Yep. So it's a 33 unit deal in Alabama. It was 31 park owned homes, and it was 2 tenant owned homes, and city water, city sewer, paved roads. Just a overall beautiful park. And I really I love the story of the property. That was really kind of what drew me to it. It was listed by a Marcus and Millichap broker. It was a single seller. She had owned it for 25 years, bought the park in the late 90s and kind of built it up over the course of time. And, she had ran into some medical problems over the last couple of years, and kind of, was getting to the age where she wanted to start to sell off the park. And she also owns a large portfolio, and we'll get into that later. But she was at a point where, she had made her money with the park and she was ready to exit, and she was selling it at a substantial discount. And so, do you want me to go into
how much?
So she was selling at 1.1 million for 33 units. It was about a 3.26 acre lot, really good land, also really good location in town. And it was in Montgomery, Alabama. And and also the as is NOI was $192,000.
Well, that was on your calculations or her calculations?
That was on actuals of 2 years. That was on a T12 and also a T24. Okay. So obviously I underwrote that even less. But it really is, and it's an interesting way of how she ran the park. Market rent for some of these units were $700, $750 long-term rent. She was actually running them as weekly rentals, and she was collecting about $1,100 a month on all of these units. So, there's some substantial cash flow in this deal. Also, park owner was paying for the utilities, so that was part of the underwriting process. But it was a cash cow, absolutely,
for sure. And then, so what was the value at? Are you keeping it weekly? Are you keeping people paying weekly?
Keeping it weekly, yeah. And it's weird how that even came about. That actually came from the majority of the tenants. They want to pay weekly, surprisingly, because the thing is, these people get paid weekly checks, and so they don't want to hoard their checks until once a month and then pay a one-time payment. They're actually willing to pay more just by the ability to pay weekly for some of these, because they get their check, they pay their rent, and then they're on to the next week. And so it actually came out of the tenants asking, "Hey, can we pay weekly?" And then she started to run this little business model, and it's been incredible. And the best part about this deal is I bought it with private money, and I cross-collateralized some of my other rentals, and basically bought it cash at 13% for 10 months. And when we got it appraised at $2.04 million.
Pretty good, dude. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I mean, look, me personally, how are you collecting the weekly rent? Like, you have somebody there doing it, or are they paying online or cash pay or something?
So she has built a team of people that actually. So we have two on-site managers. One is collecting the rents. One's kind of like an office admin. And then so basically she has about 7 employees that actually work at the park.
Well, that small park, that just seems a little crazy.
Yes. So she's got a great team. She's got an office in the front where all the tenants come in every Friday and pay their rent either through credit card or debit card, or they come in with cashier's checks. And she's made it very easy on these tenants, and they love this park. I mean, she's got a 15-person waiting list of people trying to get in there because it's managed very well. And these are attractive looking mobiles. It's paved streets. And so it's just a good little operation. And so basically, we have on-site management.
Yeah. Wow. And what if you have 7 employees? Like, I wouldn't run this park like that personally. But like, what's your payroll there? Like, because if I'm looking at that, I'm like, you have 7 freaking employees. Unless you're paying them all just a little bit every week, like they're not working that many hours. Like, that seems to me is going to just blow up the NOI.
But there's another portion of this. So she owns, or did own, an additional 53 units about a mile away from the mobile home park. So she not only owned this 33 units, she owned a large single-family portfolio about a mile away. So the bulk of that expense is associated with that other portfolio as well. So they're helping her with everything.
Got it. And then so she's still letting you use the same employees?
Yes.
Okay. Well, dude, I mean, more power to you, man. Like that's a good situation. Not necessarily a scalable situation, but it's a heavy cash flow situation. So what's your cash on cash return there now?
Well, I actually bought the park with less than $20,000 out of pocket.
And then what are you bringing in on it every month?
So it nets about 17 to 18. It grosses about 33 a month. Depending on CapEx and maintenance, it nets about 17.5 ish. And I have hard money on it right now for 13,000 a month.
Yeah, there you go.
With basically $10,000 into the deal.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good. I mean that's a good return, man. And you'll own that asset here at some point. So yeah, dude, that's interesting. And it's interesting you brought that up because if I see a deal like that, I'm going to do it a little bit differently than that. I'm 100% not going to keep it weekly. That just sounds like brain damage. But I guess with that particular management system that you have in place there with the old owner, I'd be curious to see how that goes long term. But it seems like it's working out well for you now.
Here's what I would say about that is I agree with you 100%. The whole situation to me, I'm like, weekly rentals, really? Like these people, But
I've seen a bunch of stuff. We bought stuff that's weekly before. We've always transitioned it. But go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, you're good. But the missing piece to this puzzle, really the icing on the top with this whole entire thing, is me and the seller have really built an amazing rapport and an amazing trust and friendship. That is the big kicker in this, because if I didn't have any relationship with her, I mean, trust me, I would have questions about this whole entire operation, right? She is, I have a really good discernment about people, and she is salt of the earth type of person. And so she gave me a substantial discount on the property. And the funny thing was, once we actually closed on the mobile home park, because I, gave her $1 million and she was ecstatic. She was thrilled, over the moon that she got $1 million, paid off all of her debt, happy as can be. And she then approaches me about a week after the sale and goes, "Hey, I also got another little 20-unit single-family portfolio a mile down the street. Do you want to buy this?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so there's three phases to this because she's retiring, right? She's a 70-something-year-old woman in Alabama. She wants to get out of the business and just cash out, right? And in order for me to give her that peace and comfort of the deal of essentially buying her whole portfolio from her, she's willing to give me a discount on this because we have that trust and we have that friendship. So phase one was the mobile home park. Phase two, we just actually closed on last week, was the 20-unit single-family portfolio. And then phase three will be probably Q2, Q3 of next year. And I'm going to buy the rest of her portfolio. So that's the piece to this that I wanted to mention.
And that's awesome. And look, that is super, super important because you said she's owned this park for 25 years. Right. Yeah. So, and we talk about this, everybody I have on this show, we talk about this, how important relationship building is. And that's how you find these killer off market deals. Yeah. Because you are building the relationship. You're not just going to close someone on selling their park immediately on the phone. It's just dumb. Like, it's not going to happen. Right. Think about something that you've had for a majority of your life and how easy that is for you to get rid of. Most people would say, yeah, dude, I'm not getting rid of whatever I'm thinking of right now. Yeah. And so you have to build that relationship. I think that's awesome. So what advice would you give to people that are on the phones, they're calling sellers and they're frustrated, like getting that first deal because it's slow? Like, what advice would you give those people?
I've thought about this tons of times. It is really, I really think it boils down into, instead of going wide with your contacts, instead of going, calling 1,000 people in a day, I think you really have to go deep with the right people. I think that's very big into this because, as you know, this is a relationship business. We're not, even though we're buying and selling multifamily properties, we're dealing with people. This is a people business. This is not a real estate business. And if you can go deep with the right people and have the right relationships with these people, they will do things for you that they will not do to the open market. I truly believe if I did not close on the mobile home park and have that type of ease and comfort with the whole transaction, and still keep them on as management, I do not think she would have given me the 20-unit deal, especially at the discount that she's given me at, which on that portfolio, bought it for $762,000. NOI is $156,000. And if it appraises at the same cap rate that this mobile home park appraised for, it'll be worth around $1.6 million. Yeah. So she is giving me deals, and I understand that. And it's not pretty. It's not, these are not the Taj Mahal, but she has great people and she has the right people in the right places. And I am focused on building the relationship. And I will tell you this, even after 2.5 months of operating it, she is going above and beyond because she almost is like, hey, I'm passing off my baby to you. I want it to be a good baby for you, and she's almost taking that pride and that ownership with her, even though she doesn't even own the park anymore. And she wants to see me do well. And so it's this whole entire story. It's not just the numbers, even though the numbers are incredible. I really think you have to find the right relationship with the right seller.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's so true. And, last week I had my call with our Inner Circle program. There's a guy on there. He's working this deal. He's building a relationship with the seller. And I was like, let's look at this deal. And I'm like, dude, this is a freaking screaming deal. I said, get your ass in the car, take a contract over to his house and sit in there and talk to him. And he did it. And after he did it, he's like, so he didn't sign the contract yet. He's going to talk to his attorney, but he's like, Derek, I guarantee you this guy is not selling to anybody else but me. And I'm like, boom, that's what you want.
Yes, absolutely. Trust. It's amazing what happens with trust. I will just tell you that, especially in real estate, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
That is plain and simple. And so, yeah, I really think, it's not about calling 1,000 sellers a day. It's not about underwriting thousands of deals. It's finding the right deals and finding the right sellers and building a relationship with them. I
Yeah.
really think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to things that I talk about too. You have to figure out like, what kind of deals that you want to buy, find those kind of deals and then work on those sellers. Like you want to,
Yes.
expand like whatever area you're looking in. But if you're going to call 10 parks, you wouldn't buy anyways. Like that's not a good use of time. So you're right,
Yeah.
and spending more time and building the relationship. I mean, that's just huge. That's just huge.
And really now for me, the next phase of this is, stabilizing the deal with good long-term debt. And so a lot of and what I've been learning in the because again, dude, I'm really only 6 to 8 months into the whole entire mobile home park world. I'm very fresh and still very new into this asset class. I have 6 years of investing in real estate experience, but about 8 months of mobile home park investing, and they are completely opposite, especially the lending side of this business. But what I've learned so far, and you can probably give me a lot more advice on this, that a lot of these deals can be financed through long-term debt through local banks and credit unions. So I've gotten a couple term sheets so far, and a lot of these guys are at 70% LTV on the ARV. We're going to be looking at anywhere from 20 to 25-year AM, 7.5% to 8.5% interest right now. So with all that being said, with this purchase, I'm going to be looking at a potential $300,000 to $400,000 cash out refinance, and that will drop the debt service about $2,000 to $3,000 a month, which will really put me in a good spot in this deal as the rents continue to increase over time.
Yeah, yeah, and that's awesome because, like, yes, the lending environment is different for these things. You kind of have to hold the bank's hand through and like, hey, this is this because it doesn't register for them. I know, um, in the beginning when we were first buying deals, we really had to walk people through. But now the banks are definitely they understand the asset more, but it can create problems for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. What did you see about the lending environment? You mentioned something about the lending environment. Like how was it different on this versus your prior business that you've gotten bank lending on?
Well, it's just a different asset class. A lot of the conversations so far have been about, park owned versus tenant owned. There's obviously a debatable thing about that in the first place. Obviously, banks love the tenant owned aspect. I kind of, because I was in the fix and flip industry. I kind of think about it a little bit different, but I understand why a bank may think that. I look at control. I look at control as being very valuable in this business. And so when I see, as a tenant owned, even though you seller finance and you still have the note and everything, I understand all that. But there's something to having the control of the actual mobile and having that control to either raise the rents, decrease the expenses by billing back some of the utilities. I think there's an argument for that. But on the lending side, they want the tenant owned.
Yeah,
They
of course.
absolutely want the tenant owned. And so it's a learning process for me, but I think it's very interesting how these banks look at it. And some banks don't care if it's park owned. They could care less.
Yeah.
But a
Yeah.
lot of them, the majority want the tenant owned.
For sure, for sure. And it's interesting. And like, and I tell people too, like they're like, Derek, all of our stuff's tenant owned. We've got a few park owned. But they're like, would you do an all park owned home deal? And I'm like, yes, if the circumstances were correct. If the market lot rent's $200, but I can get $1,100 in park owned rent, I mean, that makes more sense, right? Or
Yeah.
if there's a massive delta there between the lot rent and the park owned home rent, one, that probably means that the market lot rent is too low. One, and then two, you can get more from the park owned home rent. So I would consider it. I would totally consider. Are the homes newer at your park?
They're a mixture of 70s and 80s
Okay.
mobiles. Yep. all metal roof, which is nice. And she has done very, very quality remodels on these, really has ripped them all down to the studs and turned them over the last 25 years, but they're all metal roof, which is very cool. She takes pride in her remodels, which I like, because I take pride in my own remodels for single family deals. So, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and it's funny because I'll talk to sellers. Oh yeah, we've remodeled all the units, and then you go in and it's a shit box. Like, what the hell? Like, no, you painted the walls, dude. Like,
That's so funny.
Yeah, but there are, we have so we bought a park outside of Tampa that the seller told me that, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's do the walkthrough and see. But this guy, same thing. You have 70s, 80s models, even some 60s models in this park, and they were immaculate. Like, he did a fantastic job. Like, the same thing, ripped them out down to the studs and rebuilt the inside of it completely. And so I do. It's possible, and if you have people that are doing that, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and that's why she did it. It's gonna yield a higher rent. I mean, what you were talking about, the lot rent versus the park owned home rent. That's exactly that portion of Alabama. Is that lot rent is really like $250, maybe $300 a month. But these mobiles, I mean, they are 1,000 plus. I mean, they're on the weekly. Let me remind you, on the weekly, they're 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Long-term rental rates, they're about $700 to $750 a month. So that extra little, 25, 30% of market rent, it's interesting. I have never seen it before. And even in all the deals that I was underwriting, I had never really seen a weekly rental situation like that before. But again, I think it's the right deal and the right location with the right seller with the right story. And so I bet on the deal. I knew for a fact that it was grossly discounted. And it turns out I was right. Bought it at 57% of ARV, as is ARV. Yeah. And now it's just about stabilizing the deal, So I just got a question for you. What are your methodologies of stabilizing a deal after you buy it with hard money or private money?
Well, it depends on what kind of deal it is. Like, if it's an all tenant-owned home park, I mean, that's different. I mean, it depends on if there's delinquency. It depends on if they're park-owned homes. If they're park-owned homes, I'm going to buy in markets where rent's typically high. And so I will convert all those to tenant-owned because I know the bank likes that. And then for our sake, on the operation side, it's like, it's way, I don't want to say it's easy, but as your park seasons over the years, it does get easier because you have the same people in there. You may have a couple turnover or not, but it's generally, it's better tenant, especially if you're in a high rent market. It makes more sense because there's not that the delta is not quite as big, but in some cases it's still big, even where the lot rent's higher. And it's like, so what does that mean? Should the lot rent be higher? Like, would they pay higher lot rent? I don't know. So, yeah, so I could answer that question for an hour, depending on the park. I mean, if it's a 5-star park, which I don't have any of those. We have a park that was probably a 3.5-star park. It was just go in, get the bad people out, fix the infrastructure, and gradually raise the rents over time. Yeah,
I love it.
So
love it.
Yeah, so there's depending on what kind of park can totally vary how you're going to do that, and your strategy can be different on different parks. Like, we've had some parks that the strategy's been the same, but there's always some different little nuances because these things just operate differently. So, but what's next for you, ma'am? Are you on the hunt for deals?
I always am. Always am on the hunt for deals. I think, obviously in the near future, my goal is to continue to stabilize this portfolio that I bought from this singular seller. That's kind of my goal in the near future. But really, my buy box right now, my buy box is mobile home parks in Alabama. Mobile home park in Alabama. And I will, and especially just with her, with the type of influence that she has and her track record and everything, she's got contacts all over the place. And so I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. But with her having a lot of kind of boots on the ground, with me flying there multiple times, I really kind of want to, focus on stabilizing portfolios in Alabama. Some people are just drawn to certain things in life. Like some people are RV guys, some people are self-storage guys, some people are single family guys. I don't know why, but I think me and you are just drawn to mobile home parks. I don't know what it is, but that's just what I want to focus on, specifically just in Alabama too.
Okay. Yeah. And that's good that you have that narrowed down, because it's going to be so much easier for you to actually say, hey, this deal is good, or hey, this deal doesn't fit my box. And I think that's important to identify.
Absolutely.
For sure. So anything else you want to leave for our listeners here before we check out?
Man, I would just say conservatively underwrite. I mean, I will tell you this, there's a few deals where I was really close to pulling the trigger, but it didn't feel right. I didn't have the numbers made sense, but just something in my stomach, it wasn't a hell yes. So it was a hell no, in my opinion, and so I would just say conservatively underwrite. The reality is that these expenses are going to happen. You're not going to get the best debt. You're not going to get 4.25% debt at a 50-year note. You're not going to get a 90% LTV cash out. So I would just say conservatively underwrite on all aspects. If you're at 100% occupancy, underwrite at 90, or underwrite at 85. If you think you can get debt at 8.5%, underwrite it at 10. Because if it still works at that aspect, and 10% maintenance and expenses, underwrite, because it's only going to help you in the future. And I got burned by this in single family by thinking, the ARV is 500. Oh, it's going to bump to 515, 525 because I'm such a good flipper. Because these people are going to love these countertops and all this stuff. And reality is people don't like the house as much. Yeah. And that 500 turns into 485, And so I've learned that over time to be very, very, very conservative with underwriting and look at a ton of deals. I would say you have to, in just my opinion, I would say you got to look at 100 deals before you say yes to one. I really believe that. And it's not fun underwriting all these deals and, figuring out the debt on the exit. It's not fun doing that, but it's going to make it all the worthwhile once you find that right one and that right seller.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like practice. Like you have to, I think that's great advice, being conservative and actually underwriting deals. I mean, I think you have to do that. And it's going to make you understand the assets more. It's going to make you understand the deals more. You're going to get smarter, blah, blah, blah. All that, right? It comes from actually doing the work, surprisingly, right? You got to do the work.
Got to do the work. That's the other part of this. You got to take massive action. Just like Grant Cardone says all the time, you can't do anything with knowledge. You have to apply that knowledge and take massive action. And also, once you find the right deal, you got to rip the Band-Aid and pull the trigger. That's the other thing, is some of these people are so scared to pull the trigger finally on that right deal when it comes up. And other people do not have that same fear. And so I would say your ability to make very calculated decisions quickly is going to be a huge advantage for you. If you can establish that muscle in this business to do that, you're going to be that much farther ahead from everybody else who just has all the knowledge but doesn't want to apply it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. That's great advice. Please heed that advice, people listening. Well, cool. Garrett, man, I appreciate you coming on. By the way, man, I was looking at your Instagram, and I'm a watch guy. I see you got some nice watches on there, man. I saw a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple in there.
Yeah, I like it, man. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm a watch guy too, so I get it. Well, cool. Well, thanks for being on the MHP show, guys. We're live. We're on air every Monday. The show is aired. Check out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. And check out the derekvickers.com/evergreen webinar. And please like and subscribe to the podcast. We will see you all next week. Peace.